This is our urine episode.
Yeah. So, hey, Dave.
Hey, Holly, how are you?
I am as well as can possibly be. How are you?
I'm good. Welcome to the What Difference Does It Make podcast. 2020 is over. Congratulations. We made it.
2020 is over. We made it. We're hanging by a thread. No, actually, I wouldn't say that. I think for the What Difference Does It Make podcast, it's been a pretty good year.
It has. Not as nice as last year at this time. I remember we poured some champagne. We were in the garage together. We drank. Had a drink or two, and talked about good times and looking forward to 2020. And who knew where we were headed? It's kind of cool.
Who knew? Kind
of weird. We made a pivot.
We were actually together at this time last year.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at our top 10 episodes for 2020. By the way, we are now one of the changes we made. We are now part of the Pantheon podcast family, which is nice.
Super cool.
Yeah. So they have a list of the top 10 episodes. And you would think we interviewed some amazing people. The ones that people seem to gravitate to are like compilation type episodes. Of course, Christmas is top of the list. But then we have 1983 pop culture and Halloween. And then we have our Eddie Money and Rick Ocasek tribute is on our list. For some reason, the Brits are represented. Our friend Nick Bedding, record promotions guy, is on there twice, as is Dan, the sound man McGrath. He's on there. And Trevor Steele of the Escape Club. So it's kind of interesting that those are our favorite. It seems like compilation. So what we are doing for this episode is making a compilation of everything that happened in 2020. We're going to remember, Holly, back in the day when you tuned into Happy Days or Welcome Back, Kotter, and you're like, oh, good, a new episode of this, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, they're looking back and they're doing flashbacks of like, remember this when this happened, when Mr. Kotter told that joke to his wife, and
it's a clip. It was a clip episode.
It was a clip episode. So that is what this is going to be. We're going to do a clip episode of some of our favorite moments from 2020. These episodes that I mentioned from that are in our top 10 weren't necessarily from the new year. I mean, for us, it was kind of out of necessity. We started to experiment with Zoom, and it was nice to realize, like, oh, if you ask, sometimes some people will say yes to interviews. We had some really nice interviews and we're gonna play some highlights from that. I haven't seen you in 9 months. I know. Right?
That's unimaginable. I could have had a baby in the time that we haven't seen each other.
Well, it's not.
If I was of childbearing age.
We were drinking, but nothing else happened, people. Calm down. This is not that type of podcast.
No, you feel free to edit that out. I didn't mean I could have had your baby. I just could have had a baby.
Nice. So we've been looking back at what we did in 2020. We started out in 1983, like any normal year. We wanted to look back at the year 1983 and do the countdown, and then go into 1984 and do the countdown, and just kind of count down things on KROQ, because that's what we did, and maybe talk to Craig Rosen once in a while, because he's our
resident music expert.
Yeah, friend of the show. He was. We did a few people. We brought people into the garage to talk, and so because that's the way we wanted it. We wanted to look people in the eye and say, "Hey, how are you?"
So, do you remember we actually did, before the pandemic started? We had 3 interviews in the studio, in the garage. Do you remember who they were?
Well, of course, we had our friend of the show, Craig Rosen, in there. We did have your friend, and now friend of the show, J.C. Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had my friend and drummer extraordinaire, as we call him, Glenn Sobel, Alice Cooper drummer. So that was cool. We didn't even talk about being in the studio with Joe Perry and Alice. What is that about?
Geek out.
A lot of late nights. Yeah, Hollywood vampires, a couple of them literally are vampires. Johnny Depp and Joe Perry. They like to work late. And the very first demo recording session I did started at like 1:30 in the morning because I had a gig way down in Anaheim. This was NAMM a couple years ago, the NAMM convention week. And I was playing with Richie Sambora down there. And I was called to do this session to guarantee me, lock me in for the record. It was Tommy Hendrickson, New York guy, you know, he's like, dude, I need you to come down for this session. We got to make sure make sure they know that you're the guy for this record, you know, and when is it? Wednesday. I got a gig. He said, doesn't matter. Come after. I said, it's in Anaheim. If I come after, I won't get there till 1:30 in the morning. He said, perfect. They're just getting going at that time. And yeah, I showed up like 1:30, whatever. And by the time I got recording, maybe it was closer to 2:30 or 3. And Johnny said, like, play something impossible. And I thought, like, no problem, because I'm really out of it. I just played a long gig. It was with Richie and several other artists. It was one of those gigs where I was backing up many people. Mm-hmm. But sometimes it's good to be burnt out because your guard is down and you're not trying to do anything. You're just doing it. And I guess it went well enough to where Johnny and Joe, you can get a thing called demo-itis where you get just married to the way the demo sounds. And when it comes time to do the actual record, you don't want to change anything. You love the demo. And so I had to write down exactly whatever I did at 3 a.m. and replicate it on the actual record. But there were several nights of those demo sessions that would go late, and I'd be like nodding off and saying, all right, I'm going to get out of here. And Joe would be, oh, you're not leaving yet, are you? No, I guess not. Okay. What's next? And
it was so much. It was really fun having people live in the studio. All 3 of them were great interviews. It was really fun. So then, boom, Craig was actually our very last interview before the pandemic hit and everything shut down.
Yeah, I remember him talking about, because he loves Costco, that he was going to go to Costco after our interview. And he was a little worried because, you know, things were brewing and he was worried about long lines and, you know, how he was going
of toilet paper.
Yeah, how he's going to get through that.
So everything kind of pivoted after we got through. We finished up KROQ 1983. We had a few guests in the studio and we kind of had to pivot. It kind of ended up it definitely ended up benefiting us. We got to talk to a lot of people, a lot of artists, a lot of authors, film directors, because a lot were available. And once we started doing our podcast on Zoom and we kind of got the hang of it and we, got used to how it worked, we started booking a lot of interviews. And I'd say we did some really fun ones and some that artists that might not have been so readily available if it was a quote unquote normal year.
True. How many interview shows did we do this year?
Oh, I didn't even count them. 30? How many?
You're supposed to guess low. What, like 10, 15?
Okay. 20?
We did
15?
We did 25 interview shows. And how many guests?
25.
We did 40 guests.
We did full bands.
Yeah, over 40 guests. So it was kind of cool. Like if we had started this new year and we had looked at, you're going to talk to Kathy Valentine, you're going to talk to Jefferson Starship, you're going to talk to Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Doug Cosmo Clifford. You're going to talk to, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer David Freeberg of the Jefferson Starship. You're going to talk to
Chris Franz from the Talking Heads.
Yeah, it would have blown my mind.
Yeah.
And still does.
Josie Cotton. I know. We had some it was fun that we kind of reached out to our friends initially, like Glenn Sobel and like the Pandoras. All of a sudden I discovered that you're a friend of the drummer from the Pandoras. Yeah.
Like, that's amazing. Let's talk to the Pandoras.
Okay, so Paula started playing music when she was 14 years old. She played accordion, and Kim Fowley told her, "Hey, you need to start a band."
And Kim Fowley, of course, famously is he started up the Runaways, and correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And Paula just loved the Runaways. It was like her favorite band. And so Kim Fowley said, you need to start a band. So Paula went out, she bought a Fender Mustang bass, and she started a band called The Rage with Don Williams. And that's where Paula got her start. And she was really young in the scene, and she started doing that. And then she started the direct hits, who then turned into the Action Now, and then started the Pandoras.
That kind of led to other.
It snowballed.
Yeah. So that was a good start, and then all of a sudden we started to go into reach out to people we didn't even know or we didn't realize that we might have a connection to.
Oh, what about Mark Goodman?
Mark Goodman, I think probably one of my favorites.
Nobody knew what a VJ was supposed to do, and we all were just trying to figure it out. The funny thing, when I look at the tapes from like the first couple of months, the set looks bare. I mean, it was supposed to look like some loft where the five of us lived,
like the monkeys or something. Yeah.
But I look at it now and it was barren. I mean, there was like a bike leaned up against the wall and that was it. And over time, we gussied it up quite a bit and put a lot more stuff in there, made it a little more sort of homey. I noticed once we came on in Manhattan, which was a year into us broadcasting, we weren't on in Manhattan. So the five of us weren't able to watch MTV for the first year. People in New Jersey and on Long Island and all around us were seeing it. So it's hard to imagine if you're just doing the wraparounds. We didn't see the videos. We were just doing our segments. And once it came on, I kind of noticed that it felt like everything came to a screeching halt for our segments. Because you come out of these videos there was all kinds of stuff going on and explosions and actors and makeup and lighting and slow motion. And there we were. And so I came up with the idea of moving in some way when they came to me in the studio. And I did that for a while. And some of the others, I think, started to do it as well. And then I started to notice, well, crap, it looks like I'm running all over the set. What am I running all over the place for? So that was just one of the things that we tried to figure out.
Do you have like favorites? So I'm going to ask you right next, because this is a clip show.
Yes.
So let's start with one of your favorites, and then we'll play a clip or a memory from that moment that you got to talk.
I swear to you, this is the honest truth. I have enjoyed every single one of these interviews we've done. And sometimes, you would hit me, you would message me and say, hey, do you want to talk to so-and-so? And I always say yes, because I love the opportunity. But I think, I don't know how that's going to apply to us, or is it going to be the most interesting for our audience? But I have to say, I think really every interview we've done has been a blast, for me at least. And I think for you too. And I think our audience have enjoyed, from the feedback I've gotten, have enjoyed. So that being said, when we got Kathy Valentine wrote a memoir this year, had memoir published. I was giddy because, the Go-Go's were my life when I was, toward the end of high school. That was a lot of fun.
The first song I wrote in LA was Can't Stop the World. And it really melded my external situation with what I was feeling inside. And in my book, I write, that's where I really became a true musician, not because I could play the scales up and down the neck, 20 miles an hour, but because I was able to make a musical expression out of what I was feeling, and filter my external circumstances through music. So once I did that, I was off and running, and writing songs has been my go-to for many years. It's quite a therapy. But Can't Stop the World ended up, not only did my band, the Textones, do it, but the Go-Go's put it on the first album, which was wonderful for me because I was the last member to join, and that album easily could have not had any songs by me.
Okay, clip show. Time to take a potty break, and we will be right back.
To the What Difference Does It Make podcast. We're so happy to be able to reflect on the year and share some of our favorite bits. So we're huge fans, as we are of a lot of the artists that we've interviewed this year. But talking to them as a fan, but also talking to them as a professional, I think is a benefit because it gives us a greater ability to really get at what we think our fans, the fans of our podcast, our listeners want to hear. If I want to hear it, I assume they want to hear it.
100% correct. So, which I'd like to think. And by the way, this is a good opportunity to suggest to listeners to help contribute to our podcast on social media. When you make comments on our episodes, it helps us tremendously. If there's, any type of feedback or something that you hear from an episode, like when we talk to Chris Franz or Kathy Valentine or even Craig Rosen, we want to know what you think. And it makes our podcast better. We'd like to know what you think about our podcast. It's nice when you see likes. It's even better when you can type out 10 words saying, I love this part where you talked to Kathy Valentine about so-and-so.
Or tell us what you don't like and we won't do it again.
Well, exactly. Get some feedback. Help make us a better podcast.
And thank you. Okay. So what about Jefferson Starship?
So that was one, lifting up the curtain. We liked their new album, but we weren't sure if this was right for us. And to bring in all 5 members of the band, like, oh my God, okay, how are we going to control this? Easily top 5, top 3, one of our shows. They made it so much fun. And it was great just to be, you're almost like, for us, it was like being a fly on the wall because, it's this band, they have this band dynamic and hearing them talk back and forth. And a lot of times Holly and I just stood back and like, all right, let's just let these guys talk. And because it's kind of fun hearing, it's almost like locker room talk. This is just, them just going back and forth with each other and enjoying each other's company because they are a band. They have this history together.
Helm was just rain just pelting me. I'm singing and freezing, and it was terrible, but fun.
You aren't a fat enough lady. You aren't fat. You got to have a fat lady for that.
Oh, come on. I can hang in there with the best of them.
No, you can't. Your voice can, yeah.
You've been singing a lot lately because I'll tell you what, your voice on the anthem that we did or you did, you were killing it, man.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your voice is so strong. We need to get together.
Let's make a band, guys.
Yeah, let's get a band together. Let's record.
It all happened here. It started on the What Difference Does It Make podcast.
Oh my God. I love that we just all started talking and you guys didn't even get to do an intro at all. Or did you?
You guys are so cool.
I really don't know who we're talking to. Hi, Holly. Who are you?
When does the show start?
We actually usually tell you that we have an introduction that we do, and then one of us will introduce you. But since we all started talking,
no, I think it's great. You guys exactly. You haven't seen each other in a while. This is probably the only time you guys see each other.
We haven't seen each other since yesterday.
Yeah.
So we Zoom
constantly. Oh, shut up!
Came on and they just took our show over completely.
We drink a lot of coffee.
Yeah. What's this talk about a show? I thought we were just hanging out.
That was such a fun episode and such a great experience interviewing all, just getting to talk to all of them.
We had other bands. We had the Immediate Family. It was crazy. And that was one where I feel like it took a while for them to warm up to us. They're like, okay, what are we getting into? We did 2 episodes with that. I feel like part 2 was a lot better than part 1.
Yes,
and that,
definitely.
It was a little, not chilly, but just, it was tepid, the first episode. And then, as we talked further, they kind of, again, they talked back and forth with each other and they involved us in the conversation. And so I think that helped that episode and just, made me love these amazing musicians, Danny Korchmar, Leland Sklar, Russ Kunkel, Waddy Wachtel, and Steve Postel, all amazing musicians in their own right. And together they just make this amazing music.
Something about watching the band that playing over and over, that brings you the comfort, not so much enthralled with the celebrity of, the singer or whoever it might be, but there is something comfortable about it.
Yeah, it's like we're the immediate family.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really, this
will always be there.
Transcends just the title of like an album or anything like that. It really is a philosophical name. This first time I saw, like when Danny put down, Danny Korchmar, Immediate Family, I thought that's the perfect name for this because we really are a brotherhood together. And the thing that's to me is wonderful is for the 50 years that I've known most of the guys, and for the 15 years that I've known Steve and worked together, I've never felt any weirdness, any animosity. You hear of all these bands that get in fist fights and they're always, psychodrama all the time. And everybody here is on the same page. They all just want to make the best music they can to share each other's talents and company. And I'm forever grateful that I have these guys in my life. And they are one special cast of characters that it's hard to come by, but time has really been a telling thing for us, that a half a century we're still digging each other and still moving forward.
There were others. We talked to, Chris Franz, of course, was, of the Talking Heads. Yeah. It was great. I remember I liked seeing his background too.
We read a lot of books this year because of our discovery of it seems like book people are more available than album people. It's maybe because the pond is a little smaller for books, possibly. I don't know. But, with radio, everyone wants to talk to, a certain artist. I don't know. It's different with books for some reason. We spoke to a great, in looking back, looking at the list, we spoke to a lot of authors or, artists that have written memoirs, including Chris Franz. But I loved talking to Dylan Jones, who wrote the memoir, The Sweet Dreams, the story of the New Romantics, which is the sweet spot for us. 1975 to 1985. Just the scene in England, in the UK, and we loved all those bands. And so just seeing the cover of just New Romantics 1975, 1985, it's like, oh, we must read this. Yes. So we dug into that. And again, he became available. He's a sir. We talked to a Sir Dylan Jones.
Yes. Jones, do we call you sir?
I think so.
Nice.
Because you are officially an officer of the Order of the British Empire, correct?
No more suffice, but you're very kind. Thank you.
What does that entail? You get a wonderful medal, but then what do you get? What are your perks? What are your club perks?
Literally none.
Oh.
I had my previous agent, who sadly died. He was from New York, Rhodes Scholar, and he was made a CBE because he spent most of his life in the UK. Big literary agent, Ed Victor. And he called me up one morning and said, Dylan, I know you have an honor, and I just got this honor, and tell me, how do you use it? And I said, well, I kind of like it when other people use it, but I never use it. And this obviously wasn't the answer he wanted. And he asked this question sort of like 3 or 4 times. You put it on your business card, you put it on your email. I don't use it. And he said, and after a while, as was his habit, he said, Dylan, you've been really helpful. I'm going to use it on everything.
Why not? I mean, that's it. I mean, or you could be like, that was the award that John Lennon famously threw into the river. Is that
he only got an MBE? I'm just saying.
Oh, you rank higher than the Beatles. Nice.
Sure, had he still been with us, he would have been knighted. But I just finished writing a piece about John Lennon to celebrate his birthday. It would have been his 80th birthday on October the 9th. And I was writing about going to the Ghoster building about 25 years ago and to have tea with Yoko Ono. And I was trying to remember, A, what it looked like, and B, the feeling, the sensation of being in someone's house like that. When the ghosts of them were still there. It was an extraordinary afternoon. Very privileged to have been there.
Yeah.
So they're very cool.
Seeing the backgrounds was the thing. You know who also had this was a good one.
Who was your favorite Zoom background? Which one?
Peter Himmelman.
Peter Himmelman. Why was that? I'm trying to remember what he had.
I think he had guitars. He was also, that was a highlight for me too. Hit the song he wrote for us on the spot.
But I do have this one song I want to play if I can.
Please.
I was on Zoom with Holly and Dave. I saw in their faces 2 folks that were wise and brave. Dave was wearing blue, Holly was wearing white. I could have sat here and talked to them people along into the night. But now it's tea-neck time for me. Tea-neck time for me. I've got a grandchild and a daughter to see. Something I've been working on for a while.
By the way, now that we're talking books, I was reading Rolling Stone's favorite music memoirs of 2020. And we talked to two of the artists. We talked to Kathy Valentine and we talked to Brown Mark of The Revolution. He was on the list of favorite memoirs of 2020. And that was a great talk too. I really enjoyed talking with him.
Yeah, I thought you would be giddy when we got that one, being the Prince fan you are. Brown Mark was the bassist from The Revolution during our time. He was great. He was a really good interview. It's such an interesting memoir.
Normally, when we do interviews, you get like a 2-sheet bio of the band or the artist you're talking to, and you kind of base what you're going to questions on Wikipedia or whatever you can find. But with books, it was great, especially with like Brown Mark. It was a short memoir, but it was, like 200 pages crammed full of info. We kind of felt like we knew him a little bit based on what he wrote. And so it really helped the conversation. And you also tell how during the Purple Rain tour, during sound checks, you were working on Prince has already moved on practically. You're doing the around the world in a day type sessions. Was that surprising as to the direction he was headed?
During the Purple Rain?
Yeah.
We were already he was on this Beatles kick. You could always tell where Prince was going by his clothing. Yeah, from the 1999, he was into the whole Elvis Presley, our collars were way up here and, everything was big and it was very Elvis-y, but glitzy with the purple and glam and all that. And then Purple Rain was, of course, about the movie. And it was a kind of a spin-off from the 1999, a more glorified look. But then all of a sudden he's got the bangs, short hair. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? What are we getting into here? And, next thing you know, he's trying to put me in hip huggers and bell bottoms. I'm like, dude, I ain't wearing hip huggers. And, he tried to put me in hip huggers. I mean, like the ladies be wearing where, with the little chain over my waistline. And I was like, dude, no, I'm not built like you, Prince. You can't put me in that. I'll be looking a little crazy out here. And so, we were back and forth and he did get me in them, but they had a waistband.
It was just kind of connection. We had talked to the Pandoras and Melanie Vamin, who was also in the Muffs, is now playing with Josie Cotton. And like, we would love to talk to Josie Cotton. And it so happened that Josie had just regained control.
Back from her own, from some of her older material and is getting it out there. So we got to talk to her about that.
Yeah. And she was wonderful. The only problem with Zoom, she didn't realize that we like to see these people as much as we could. I don't know.
So we didn't get to see her. So we had to make do with photos that we see. And she's very active on Instagram. So we follow her and we see her pictures. And she was great. She was a super fun interview. But I really do wish we could have seen her.
Well, Randy Phillips was my manager for years, the Michael Jackson, that one.
Yeah.
So he asked me, well, how does it feel to be a sex object? That was like, and I said, I guess it's better than not being one. I mean, there was some slippery slopes there. I don't think I would answer it the same way now. But.
Did you think about your image or what, like how you wanted to present yourself on stage and on your albums and videos? Or was this this is what Josie was? This is who you are, and this is what you want.
Well, I had so many different personas, musically and kind of aesthetically. I could have gone so many different directions, and music was a lot bigger than just pop music, girl pop, and all that. I didn't quite have the focus that the Payne brothers were able to direct me into focusing something into something that was part of my history and love. But you have to, at some point, you have to focus what the sound and the look is going to be. You have to do that or no one can focus on you. Like if you're like changing into Edith Piaf and then you're like Tammy Wynette and then you're like, Brazil 66 and you just have to not move for a second. And they were able to focus me in that sense. They were hugely aware of image and it wasn't anything I was uncomfortable with, but they were wonderful at it.
Still a delight. That was really nice.
But I wanted to talk about this strum and thrum. We ended up talking to a bunch of the others. So strum and thrum, which I don't think Dave or I had heard this term before, but this Captured Tracks put out this compilation of strum and thrum or jangle rock.
Yeah.
And it was at what was the year? The year's 1980.
Yeah, it was early 80s.
3 to 1988, something like that. And we got to talk to a bunch of the bands that they featured, along with Mike Sniper, who is who has founded Captured Tracks and put this together. We talked to a lot of the artists, and that was really fun. It was interesting. A lot of them, were not necessarily playing music or not playing now. Some are still playing and have had success in the music industry, but that was fun. And it turns out there are a lot of fans out there of this type of music. We had our LA music scene from Strum and Thrum on that compilation. I remember the band Downy Mildew was a band that played around LA that I got to see, but I hadn't heard of any of these other bands. But, people in Philadelphia, they knew the Darrows. And so, we talked to a number of these artists and they kind of told their story in their pocket of, Columbus, Ohio, Rochester, New York, what it was like to play there. It was kind of cool. And it brought this community together of people that loved 80s music and were in college probably in the 80s and spun this music at one point. How do you figure the track order? I mean, why the reverb's number one? I mean, you got the windbreakers number 4. So anyway, what is your strategy with track order?
It is science.
Yeah, I know. Of course. Please explain your science.
So, I mean, the thing is that it is like a batting order, right? So, like the windbreakers are the cleanup hitter, right? So,
right.
Reverbs, the first 20 seconds, what this comp is all about. The whole kind of idea behind it is basically laid out in the music immediately. Like, I know what this is, And then you got to come, the second and third tracks also have to be upbeat. And then the windbreakers is like mid-tempo, and that's meant to kind of, any artist who's making this kind of music should do it that way. Do not open with a slow song unless it's your 4th record, right?
It's like going to a live show, what you expect.
I was thinking 2 ways, like streaming and side to side, like a record collector or like somebody buys the vinyl versus like, let's say a reviewer who's going to just stream the whole thing to review it, or like 20 seconds of each song. And it's like, that's a lot of jangle,
Right.
That's a lot of strum and thrum. So, you kind of try to diversify within. I mean, it's not a diverse comp. It's not supposed to be. Let's get a moody song here. Let's get a song that's a little bit more folk rocky here. Let's get one that's a little more British influenced here, right? So, yeah, like A New Personality is very British influenced, and it closes it, and the reverbs is like completely American sounding to me. That was on purpose. And plus, a new Personality is almost like that song is like end credits of a John Hughes movie or something.
That was cool, and it was good to bring all these bands together and. It was it's kind of like a high school reunion for some of these bands. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. Love that. Yeah. And so, I guess the last one we'll go back to remember is Joel Graves, because as we end our episode, he was the one who's created this What Difference Does It Make theme music. I don't know what we would call it, the What Difference Does It Make theme song that you hear at the beginning and end and middle of each one of our episodes. He's just extremely talented in the band. He's in the band Everest, who apparently, after talking with him, this band is making music again. So that's cool.
Yeah, and what a sweetheart! He was such a doll and so lovely and so easy to work with when he was creating our theme. And he has, we should mention his studio. He's now based in New Orleans. He has a studio called New Monkey Studio
in Los Angeles.
Yes,
he's living in New Orleans right now, but he's got New Monkey Studio, formerly owned by Elliott Smith. And Holly now owns one of the caps, the New Monkey Studio cap. So,
yes,
I believe it's on your Facebook. Is it on your personal Facebook page?
Yes, it is. If you are a friend of mine on Facebook, you have seen me in the New Monkey Studio cap. I'm a proud wearer.
Much like what I've learned from our promises from 2019 is I have no idea what to expect for the new year. So we're just we're going to wing it. And our promise is to try and put out. We've been pretty good about putting out an episode every Friday, and so hopefully we will continue that. Recommend this podcast to your friends. That happens. I say comments, but recommendations are also great. If you can share. And this is a good episode. I know my friend Steve will like this episode on Aerosmith because that's his favorite band, or anything. Just share it with your friends. That's what social media is about, right? Isn't that? I sound like I'm not begging, but it's always nice.
We're kind of begging.
It always puts a smile on our face. You know how when it's your birthday and you see all these people come out of the woodwork and like, oh yeah, this person's still my friend, and oh yeah, they took 3 seconds to wish me happy birthday. And that's kind of like, it's kind of nice to be thought of for just 3 seconds. We love that. So
we do.
So anyway, let's play that Joel Graves theme song as we head out into 2021. Happy New Year, Holly.
Happy New Year, Dave. I'm toasting you from a distance, but I am absolutely toasting you as my partner.
Yeah, so it's really nice. I look forward to spending more episodes with you throughout the coming year. Years.
Me too. Well said. Years.
Yeah. Okay, so until next week, this is Dave.
This is Holly.
Happy New Year. Check you later.
Over and out.